what I would like to cover in this video is cutting tools. Okay, so in Max, as we're modeling, we're having to manipulate our object at a sub-object level, and we have to be able to cut an object as such. So there are several tools that we can use to do the cutting of something. Now, up here at the top, we have a thing called a ribbon. Okay, and you want to click this little button right here, which will open the ribbon up. And this is context sensitive. You'll see if I deselect, it changes. So based on whatever we're picking, what shows up in here. But a lot of the tools that we would use to edit geometry, okay, over in here actually show up here. Okay, and we have some additional tools. So let me just talk about some of the things of how to cut this piece. Okay. So right off the bat, we have a cut. Okay, which means you just click, 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 right click to stop. In Max, it's always right click to stop. And now I've cut this piece of geometry. Now it's still sticky. It's ready to cut again, because a lot of times we're using this tool. We want to cut, then cut some more and cut some more. Okay. And this is where my snap comes into a function, because when I hit my S keys for a snap, now I'm going to right click on my snap up here, make sure it's on vertex. So that means when I get close to a vertex and I have that snap on, which like I said in the other video, S turns your snap on off, then I'm snapping right to that so that I'm cutting and snapping right to it, because otherwise I'll cut off of the edge of it. So now I'm going to cut from here to here, and now those are all quads, which are good for subdivision. So your cut tool. Now your cut tool is in your right striking menu. Okay, so it's in here also. All right, we have some other ones in here. One that people love and use all the time is Swift Loop. And what that does is when you hover over an edge, then it'll cut all the way across it. So I could hover over this one and it would cut that way, or hover here, and then I just click and it cuts all the way across it. So it's a straight cut. Okay, that's a Swift Loop. Okay, let's undo some of these and go back to where it was. Okay, we've got one thing called a Pconnect. This one's kind of unique in that all we have to do is just drag across the surface. So I'm just, what it's going to do is going to put points on here, vertices, and connect them. So I have it on, I'm just holding the mouse, and just as I drag the mouse across here, it's cutting it and putting those in there. Okay, and they're each individual cuts. So if I do Control Z, I can just undo the last one, which is really a benefit if I'm coming in here and I do something, I go, oops, darn, I didn't want that. I don't have to undo it and do the other thing. I Control Z and will just undo the last one. Okay. That's a Pconnect. Okay. Now you have one called Connect. And that's where, like, if we pick, say, this vertex and this vertex, okay, then I can connect it. Okay, so if I hit connect, it'll just connect those two. It's also in the right striking menu. Okay, connect right here. So that's the way that things can, a form of cutting also. Okay, now we also have a thing up here called a quick slice, which is a modification of a slice, and I'll cover slice here in a second. What this means is I click and hold down and I've placed a point. And now this is a cutting tool sliding across the surface. So if I go right here and then I click, it will cut all the way across there. Okay. So that's a quick slice. Now we have another thing called a slice. Okay. And it's got certain benefits. And let's go over it. Now, the nice thing about a slice is it will only slice the things that are selected. So if I'm wanting to cut, I'm going to turn the grid off here, across this, but I don't want it to cut here, okay, I click this slice plane on, okay. Now, the slice plane is like this quick slice, but it's a little bit different in that, okay, you got a button over here to reset the plane. And now the plane is going a parallel to our ground plane. So we're going to turn our angle snaps on up here. I'm going to right click, rotate, and then rotate it up. And I'm looking down here at the bottom, just so you know, right down here you have your coordinates. So I'm going to undo that. So look, watch this coordinate right here. When I click here and I drag, and we're doing it until it's 90 degrees. We rotate it at 90 degrees. Okay, so now I'm going to move it, and I'm going to slide it. Okay. And if we get it the right angle, you can see it's going to actually, turn that snap off. It's going to cut across here, but it's going to skip anything that I don't have selected. Okay. So now when I hit slice and then I deselect, then it cut it there. Okay. Now, one of the things that's a little bit different to know is if I come in here and I select all these, now I'm going to go back into my slice plane and I'm going to slide it over here. Okay, there's where it's going to cut it. But in this case, what I want to do is I want to cut it, but I want to break these into two separate pieces. When I did the one before, it's adding geometry, but it's still a solid piece. I have a split button right here. Okay. And what that means is that when I hit slice, it's going to put that geometry and it's going to cut these into two separate pieces. So I'm going to hit slice. Okay. I'm going to turn it off, turn my polygon off. And now this is an element. So in other words, this is a separate piece from that. And I can actually pull it apart for whatever purpose. Okay. So when you're doing a slice plane and you have the split on, it actually cuts it, physically cuts it. If I don't have the split on, then it doesn't cut it into two separate pieces. It's just adding geometry in there. So in this case, it's like I come back, oh, well, I forgot to cut that. Okay, I can just select these two, okay, and go connect. And then there you go. Okay. So those are some of the methods that we have to actually add geometry and cut geometry. Okay, you have a cut, we have a Pconnect, we have a swift loop, we have a quick slice, and then you also have a slice plane, and that's under geometry. A polygon. You'll have to be under polygon because you have to select the polygons that you want it to cut. And then when you hit slice plane, I'm going to turn my split off. Turn my slice plane, then you'll see this box. And then, of course, this box can be rotated however I want, to cut it the way I want. And it can be moved around. Now, another thing I want to show you while I'm doing this is also on some display tools, is that we can turn this selection into a wireframe selection. Okay. So F2 turns it from a red selection of the polygon to just a red selection of the edges. So a lot of times we're wanting to be able to see the entire surface selected, but sometimes we just want to see the wireframe. Okay. So as I'm moving the slicing object around, we're just seeing that edge in there. Okay. And then if I split it, slice it, then it's still one piece, but now this is an element. I'm going to go back to F2, and that's an element. Now, what it's got is what's called coincident vertices. And what I mean by that is if I go to vertices and I click here and move, you'll see there's two sets of vertices here. So when we're cutting it, it's creating a set of vertex for this polygon and a vertex for that polygon. Okay. And that's what denotes it as being an element. So if these are cut so that these vertices are both separate from each other, and you'll see it's the same over here, then they'll show up as elements. Okay. Now at any given time, I can put those back together. I could weld it back together. So I could come back in here and go vertex and do a target weld, and I could weld that back together. Okay. And other things I could do is like bridge. So I could pick these two and say, I want a new piece of geometry in there. And so I could bridge that. And then it would give me new piece of geometry in between them. Okay, so cutting tools, okay? Hopefully that will help you in being able to know how to get the shape that you want when you're cutting your polygon or whatever it is you're cutting to be able to get to the shape that you want. Okay, hopefully that helps you very much. Thank you.